Yes, TRT is evolving quite significant, and actually TRT is now slightly over 20 years. It's used in 33 countries, and it's a big difference in implementation of TRT as it was 20 years ago and now. And it has an impact as well on the effectiveness and speed of recovery. 20 years ago, when I started using TRT, and it was based on the model, but before I got feedback from the patient, this was more important than all imaging study, listening to the patient. The average time to get a clear improvement was 1 year. At this moment, for last few years, the average time to see clear improvement is 1 month. So it's improvement by a factor of 12. Effectiveness from the point of view of the proportion of the patient increased slightly as well, but it was about 80% anyhow. But what improved as well is extent of improvement. So previously patients were improving by, let's say, 50% or so. Now is much bigger improvement. A number of things contributed this, and you mentioned definitely a new development in instrumentation, which I will get into a moment, but mainly feedback from the patient. And this, for example, show me two major differences which occur in implementation of TRT. One is recognition that together with tinnitus, we have a very frequently decreased sound tolerance, that people are reacting very strongly to the sound. And it's not only hyperacusis, which is well known and which about 30% of my patients have, but it's something which I'm labeling as a misophonia. It's from Greek dislike or hate of sound. And about 60% of tinnitus patients have it. It is not fully realized. In case of misophonia, is dislike of certain type of a sound. It can be voices, or voice of a given person, or sound of chewing, or sound being louder than, or sound of music versus sound of voices. It's a big variety. And the problem is that misophonia cannot be treated the same way as hyperacusis. Actually, treatment for misophonia is closer to treating of tinnitus. So before I recognize importance of misophonia, and I learned it from patients. Patients were telling me stories, and after this, I extracted this information. Starting treating misophonia provides big improvement in speed of recovery and effectiveness of recovery patient from this problem. And actually, the person which I need to acknowledge in this is my wife, who was drilling me that patients are reporting this, and I started investigating in more detail. It turned out that indeed, many patients are complaining of because of a sensitivity to the sound, decreased sound tolerance. So it was one big difference in approach. Another one is recognition of the importance of so-called conditioned reflexes in treatment of tinnitus, development and treatment of tinnitus, as well as the importance of subconscious perception of sound and tinnitus. Like we can be affected by music, which is playing the background, without realizing its presence. If somebody is playing funeral march, we'll be sad. Some joyful music will be happy without knowing why. It's the same with tinnitus. Tinnitus, it turned out, and again results from the patient, from a few hundred patients, show that tinnitus is going through the subconscious pathway. So I incorporated this and modified counseling, teaching accordingly, and this helped a lot. From the point of instrumentation, model was indicating that we should go as high with the frequency as we can with stimulation auditory system, just restoring our hearing as when we were babies or young children. And more recent development in hearing aid industry finally allowed this. And I was implementing this as soon as it was available, and this caused further improvement in speed of recovery, improvement in the extent of recovery, including strong suppression of tinnitus in some cases and so on. So all of this, and actually research, that's true, that I was postulating involvement of this emotional system many, many years ago. In 1990 I published a paper about this, and something like 10 years later the first data start accumulating. Now there's no doubt the so-called limbic system is heavily involved in tinnitus, which was theory when I was proposing my model.